Cloud. Okay, we are recording this, the April NEWRA meeting. It will be posted on the NEWRA website, newra.org, probably tomorrow or over the weekend. And as just a reminder to everyone, please be respectful when speaking to your neighbors and our guests tonight, and let's all allow enough time for everyone to speak. It is a community meeting and we want everyone to have a voice, but we also need to be cognizant of the fact that a lot of people stare at Zoom all day long and we need to give everybody time to speak. We're going to use the chat function. I'll open mics so that people can speak, as long as people keep it down, 30 seconds, 45 seconds for questions and comments. That's fine. But if you want to do it in the chat function's at the bottom. You can raise your hand. You can type in a question. You can text me. Once Nick Black starts to speak, I'll put up my cell phone number and you can send me a text if you are having trouble and I'll read your question. I want to remind everyone, if you have not yet renewed your membership for NEWRA for 2021, please do so. Hopefully by the fall, we will be able to have a fabulous party. We'll all be able to finally get together and see each other. And we do have expenses for Zoom and for our website and our mailbox and our insurance, of course. So your membership dues really do count. A couple of quick notes. We are going to work with all of our fellow groups, neighborhood groups, Munich, Wharf District, and the Ward 3 Democrats to hold a mayoral candidates night in June. We're working on a date. We've got to wait until the deadline passes at the end of May for everyone to file their papers who's running. We may do it for the at-large city council candidates, but we're going to do it for mayor. All the mayoral candidates are 6 now, I believe. And we're trying to talk about some type of a format, asking questions so that you have a chance to ask questions. We also, want to try to keep it to 90 minutes or so. So we're working on that and we'll get back to you with that hopefully shortly. The other thing we wanted to talk about tonight was we are going to form a climate resiliency task force. I don't know if folks know, but Wharf District Council has a task force together. Well, they're a little bit different than us because they have a lot of businesses there. But their task force has a lot of engineers and architects that are part of it, and they are looking at solutions to protect their property. And we really need to do the same in the North End, all the way from the Coast Guard station down to Commercial Wharf, because Christopher Columbus Park is part of Wharf District, and that is part of their resiliency plan. There is a big infrastructure bill that's being worked on in Washington, D.C. We've had some conversations with Congressman Lynch's office. We're going to work with them. We're going to work with the State House. We're going to work with City Hall. That means you, John, once we get this going. If Patrick Lyons is on here and Luigi Natali, we're going to need your help. It's something that we really need to do. If you're interested and you want to get involved, Sean, I think this might be something good for you to get involved in. We could really use your help. We really need, and we have I have a friend who works for GEI Consultants. She doesn't know it yet. She's an engineer. She's probably going to get involved too. So email me. I'll put my email up, my cell phone up in the chat. We're looking for help so that we can get going because we need to work together to come up with a plan to protect this neighborhood. And it's not just the waterfront, because if everyone remembers in 2018 how that water went right into Atlantic Ave, where all the utilities are buried. So, all right, so that'll be something to work on later this month and coming up over the summer. So we have a good lineup tonight. We have Nick Black from the Trustees Boston Waterfront Initiative, who's going to talk to us about that survey about open space. That also will involve climate resiliency. We're going to vote on Monica's request to extend their license, their closing hours. Ryan Gazda's with us. And we are going to talk about a comment letter for the North End Cross Street Boutique Hotel that many people were on that call last night. So let's get started. We're going to actually start a little early. Nick, I'm going to open your mic. Nick Black, who's the managing director. He did that survey. And as soon as I find you, Nick. All right, I unmuted you. hopefully.
Hey, Cheryl.
Hi, Nick.
How are you?
Nick has a video up of a meeting that he spoke to us in January. Was it January 2020? Just before we all went into quarantine. So you can go to their website and you can see what a meeting used to look like.
Yes, thank you, Cheryl. I was actually going to open with a line that I last saw many of you approximately 1 year and one pandemic ago. And it's been a long time and a lot of things have changed, but in a lot of ways, some things haven't changed. And so I just wanted to take a few minutes tonight to touch base because for those of you who may not know me or remember me, as Cheryl said, my name is Nick Black. I'm the Managing Director of the Boston Waterfront Initiative at the Trustees of Reservations. Excuse me. We've been working on a number of different projects around the harbor to create climate resilient green open space, particularly out of either disused infrastructure or infrastructure that's under threat of climate change and sea level rise. Since we last spoke, we've made considerable progress on a parcel across the way over in East Boston, Piers Park Phase 3. It's a derelict pile field of a pier that many of you probably have a great view of if you have a harbor view over in East Boston. And we've started a public design process for that. And if any of you have been able to participate in those meetings over the last few weeks, appreciate that as well. I wanted to come back and talk to all of you because Cheryl and I were chatting just a couple of weeks ago, really, about all of those things that she was just talking about, all of these opportunities that we have as a community, as a city, as a Commonwealth to figure out what comes next. There's been substantial changes in the way things are happening at the federal level in terms of funding. There's been substantial changes here at the city in terms of the fact that we have a new mayor and that we're going to have, I'm sure, a lively and spirited mayoral election over the next few weeks. And so we thought it might be a good time to revisit this idea of what does open space, what does resilience look like along the North End waterfront. Our interest has always been specifically around Sergeant's Wharf as an item that was included in the Resilient Boston Harbor Vision that the mayor put out in 2018. And so that's kind of what I just wanted to come back and talk about a little bit. It's funny because if you go back and look and watch that video, which I did before I came here, I was asked a question: how do we know that this isn't just a theoretical conversation that we're having with BPDA and their ability to actually move this thing forward? And I said at the time, I don't know. I don't know that we are not just having a theoretical conversation, which ended up being kind of true. Because another point that was made at that meeting is that that parking lot does generate a substantial amount of revenue for the BPDA. And while they had been interested in some conversations early on, the hit that they took, particularly in the early part of the pandemic, to their budget and the uncertainty that created, really put that conversation on hold. And not a lot happened with it moving forward. And so that's why everything kind of got quiet and we didn't really have much to say or do to move that forward. But now that things have started to pick up and that we're starting to get a better sense of what's possible, what's happening, we have started to re-engage and have some conversations with the BPDA, but they still are gonna need a ton of revenue to let go of that asset as a parking facility. And so we're still talking with them to work that out to see if that's possible. But before we got to that point, I, again, talking to Cheryl, said, you know, what would be very useful and helpful is to really understand what the neighborhood thinks about this. And I know there was some positive feedback at that meeting. We had a lot of great follow-up meetings. I see a lot of faces where I got to have individual one-on-one conversations with all of you. And would love to revisit those. But for me and for us at the trustees, we thought it would be most useful to gather as much data as we could from the community. And so we kind of did a soft launch of that survey a couple of weeks ago, got it to Cheryl, got it to the NEWRA folks. It's gone to the Wharf District Council. I think we had about 177 responses to it already, which is pretty great. But I would like to ask all of you, if you haven't already taken it, obviously take it, but then also pass it amongst your own networks of people, friends, neighbors, acquaintances, people you work for, people you work with, to gather as much information about the neighborhood's perspective on the idea of the project that I think will become very useful in the coming weeks and months as you're having conversations with elected officials, as you're having conversations with prospective mayors, having that understanding of really kind of the community perspective is what we're trying to achieve. So it has gone from being something that's gone circulating around by email to there. It's actually up on my website now. You can just go to onewaterfront.org/poll, POLL, and the survey is there, along with that fun video of us about a year ago where I had much less hair and much less of a beard. Yeah, so that's really what I'm here to do tonight, is just ask that you give us some feedback. And I think we'll take that feedback and start to see what it says and come back and have conversations around what the next steps are. Because if this is something that's going to happen, it will have to be something that's driven by you, the residents and business owners and workers who live and work in the North End. And so that's, you know, long and short of it. If it doesn't have overwhelming community support, there's really not much more we can say or do about it. So that's what we're here to assess. And with that, I'll cede the floor, answer questions, whatever you guys want to do.
Can you talk about some of the early results?
Sure. I don't want to go into too many detail because, again, we still want to gather as much information as possible. But the things that really stuck out to me is the overwhelming concern about climate change and sea level rise. That's something that, you know, 80–90% of people listed as either very important or somewhat important to them. And so it's clearly an issue that you guys are thinking about. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the Climate Ready Downtown North End report that finally came out, I think probably October, maybe November of last year, that talked about the need to use different techniques, including resilient open spaces, as protection for the neighborhood. There has been a good bit of interest in the use of Sergeant's Wharf. There's lots of conversations around parking and where does parking go if it goes away from there. My objective is to also kind of put this on a tight window to where it's not just open and ongoing. So my hope is that by April 30th, I guess I should have said this, we'll consider the survey closed, and we'll have results that we can report out. I mean, presumably at the next NEWRA meeting, I would be happy to come and present those or pass them along in a report form if that makes more sense. But yeah, so I mean, like I said, there's already been great participation in the survey so far with 177 responses. But I would love to see that, you know, 400 or 500 responses at least, to sort of have that you know, sense that the community really had a chance to weigh in on it and make their voices heard.
John Romano, is that something you can send to your list? I just unmuted you.
Yeah, so that's something, if you, like we talked about before with our community, like my newsletter from there, if you all have something you want me to share, just send me an email with like kind of a write-up, so that way I can look at it and send a format out for it. Those typically go out, I think, Friday at noon-ish. So if you send Nick, if you send me an email, I'll put my email in the chat, and sure, so we can connect from there.
And you might also want to send it to Michael Benetti. He's not able to join us this evening. He has a couple of other meetings at 7 o'clock. If you email it to him, Councilor Edwards sends one out. And Karen Foley, you are on this call. I'm unmuting you. Does Councilor Asabi George do an email blast to her list?
Yeah, yes. We send it to me, Cheryl, and we'll get it out.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
put your email in the chat and Nick can grab it and send it to you. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm looking to see if I missed anybody else who's here that might be able to send it out. You know, we can send it out again, but you know, I don't think people can do it twice anyway. So
they might physically be able to, but we can certainly track for that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think we're just trying to get as open and honest a field of view as possible. So I would just ask if there are any other sort of neighborhood groups, or if there's churches or schools or, you know, things like that, just creative ways to get it out and get the information in. That'll be helpful for us in terms of figuring out what our next steps would be.
The only other thing I can think of is the Old North Church, Nikki Stewart. She has a list. We might be able to try her. And I see a couple of folks, Barbara and Betsy, are here from Lewis Wharf. They might be able to send it to their lists. I'll send it. I can send it to you, Betsy, or put your email in the chat and Nick can send it to you.
Yeah, so I put the link to the website in the chat as well.
Your email
it's a-
address in there so they can.
Oh,
they
yeah,
can
sure.
sign directly, yeah, and maybe Ellen, in your building, you might be able to do it for your building because you have a good sized group. Ellen Hume. Anybody else? Anybody else that can help Nick get some more responses? That would be great. All right, well, we look forward to hearing the results.
Yeah, we'll pass along an update.
Yeah, that would be terrific. Thank you very much. Well, we are actually running ahead. Victor, I'm going to open your mic because Monica's is up and Ryan is on the call.
And I unmute myself as well.
You are unmuted. You're all set.
I am unmuted. Okay. Well, Monica's was on the ZLC agenda and was heard at a ZLC meeting. Monica's Trattoria at 67 Prince Street currently has a closing hour for alcohol of 11 p.m. 7 days a week. They are seeking to extend that to Monday through Thursday to midnight and Friday and Saturday to 1 a.m. And I guess that Ryan Gazda is here to present it to NEWRA for a vote. I hope. Is Ryan here?
Yeah, he's here. Ryan's here. I have to open it and I was muted. Hold on one second. I meant to do that before. Ryan, okay. There you go.
Cheryl, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Victor. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ryan Gazda from McDermott, Quilty Miller, and I represent Monica's Trattoria on Prince Inc. As Victor had said, we're here tonight to talk about an extension of the current closing hour of the restaurant. This is at 67 Prince Street. It's been owned and operated by the Mendoza family for over 25 years. And there was actually an error in the notice that we had sent out earlier, and we discussed it in the ZLC meeting. The current closing hour of the restaurant is 11 p.m. Monday through Thursday and 12 a.m. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So what we're looking to do is to extend that by 1 hour, so it would result in the restaurant being closed 12 a.m. Monday through Thursday and 1 a.m. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. This is strictly limited to the indoor operation of the restaurant. This has nothing to do with any outdoor seating or anything of the like that. This is simply just 1 hour extension. There's no other operational changes being proposed. So it's really just looking to give the restaurant an opportunity to seat patrons for an additional hour and help them hopefully recoup some of the business losses that they've incurred over the last year dealing with COVID and all the closures like that. We did have discussions with some of the members of the ZLC who were at the meeting last week, specifically regarding some potential noise emanating from the premise. And I can happily state that the client is willing to close the exterior windows that open out the front of the restaurant for the extra hour that we're looking for. So that would result in those being closed at basically what the current closing hour is now. So during the extra hour that they would be open, there would be no potential for additional noise to really travel outside of the premise. But other than that, we're happy to answer any questions or, hopefully address any concerns that you all may have. But again, the family's been operating the restaurant there for several decades. They're members of the community, but they would love to have your support.
Let me ask Ryan, when would the windows be closed then?
So they would close at the current closing hour now, which would be 11 p.m. Monday through Thursday and 12 a.m. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So basically the extra hour that we're asking for, the windows would stay closed.
Okay, and I guess I should add, for those who may have forgotten it, that the licensing board closing time for pouring is, let me put it the other way around, that the licensing board requires customers to be out of the restaurant 1/2 hour after the closing hour for pouring. So that would be 1:30 Friday through Sunday. And also, I was curious about Sunday. Do you know what the logic is for having a 1 a.m. Sunday closing?
Frankly, I think it's just we were looking for the 1 hour across the board, and currently the closing hour for Sunday is 12 a.m. Why Sunday is 12 a.m. and Thursday is 11 p.m. is beyond me. But so, I mean, I understand that, but we're just looking for an even 1 hour extension. It's basically why Sunday would have the 1 a.m.
I see. Okay. Any questions from anyone?
Put your hand up. Well, we can open mics. Someone's got to have a question. I'm looking to see if anybody's physically putting their hand up. David Robertson, hold on 1 second. I'm going to open your mic. Okay. I'm opened your mic. You have to click. There you
I
go.
live,
You're open.
I live directly across from 64 Prince Street, at 64 Prince Street, and I would not have any type of problem with Monica's staying open late. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak? Have a question? So Sue, hold on a second. Let me find you and I'll open your mic. You are open.
Well, I do understand, restaurants wanting to get more hours to recoup costs, but, that's very difficult when they're asking for some later hour on a Sunday night, considering that Monday is a work day for most people. So that means if their last pour is at 1 and people leave at 1:30, they're generally going through the neighborhood at 2 a.m. when other people have to get up early.
Where did she live there?
I'm sorry?
I think somebody was sneezing. I closed the mics.
Okay.
Ryan?
I can only state that I believe this is the only all alcohol license in the North End that has a closing hour that's earlier than 1 a.m. I know a lot of the restaurants in this direct vicinity are beer, wine, and cordials, or just beer and wine. But this is the rare type of license that has a closing hour that's before 1 a.m. So we're just really looking to be on even playing field with the other type of establishments that have this license that they bought and paid for, and they're looking to get the benefit of that.
Can anyone else verify that in terms of all alcohol licenses, all being open till 1?
Mary, I know your hand's up. Your mic is open.
Okay. Just to follow up on what Sue said, this is a restaurant that is right in the middle of a most residential area of the North End. If we agree to this for them, I don't see why we wouldn't agree to it for all the other restaurants. And keeping in mind that we try to maintain a balance between the restaurants and the residents, I just think it's very difficult to have people coming out of restaurants, walking around on the street at that hour of the night. And I don't see where it really makes any difference whether it's all alcohol or beer and wine. It's not what's going on inside the establishment, it's what's going on when people are leaving and walking through our neighborhood. And there's no way around the fact that it is noisy when people, I don't live anywhere near it, but I do live near the parking garage. And we already get noise from places that are open till that hour. We have 100 places in the neighborhood. I just think that it's too much. And the fact is, accommodations are being made for the restaurants. I totally support that. They're having their outdoor space. Anything else that can be done to support them by the neighbors, I agree with that. But if we agree to these late closings, it's not just during the pandemic, it's forever. And it really changes the character of the neighborhood in terms of livability.
If I may just respond briefly, I would just say that we would have to look particularly at the operator. And this is a family who's been in the community for several decades. They're part of the community themselves, and they, of course, understand that this has the potential to, create additional noise in theory for people who live in the area. And they're not looking to cause any disruptions for anybody. And their track record shows that they take it relatively seriously, and that they haven't had any incidents in the past for a violation against them. And they have agreed to put a sign outside. I'm not sure if they actually already have. They may have, But we briefly discussed it in the ZLC meeting as well, that they're putting a sign outside that will basically state that this is a residential area. You know, when you're vacating, please keep noise down, try not to disturb the neighbors, things to that effect. And they are willing to put a number up there. I don't think it will be a personal cell phone number or anything like that, but a number where if there's people who are in the area who live around there and they have concerns, to call them, and the owners will, you know, address it and try to swiftly take action so that the neighbors don't have to deal with any late noise at night. So they're cognizant of potential issues, and, you know, they're willing to work with people.
Right, but when they leave your facility, they're out of your control. I mean, you could have the best intentions in the world. I'm sure that your clients do have the best intentions in the world. I acknowledge they live in the neighborhood. But the fact is that once they leave your building, they are out of your control. You can have all the signs that you want, but those of us who live there know what happens when people leave places late at night. And again, it's not just this one place, but if you want it and you get it, why shouldn't all the other restaurants get it? And why won't they get it? And we've seen this before, that the closing times were earlier, and little by little, they've gotten later. So you might be one of the first ones, but why wouldn't other restaurants come in and say the exact same thing? And we've got so many in the North End. So you're really no different from anyone else. So again, your clients may live in the neighborhood. Nobody is complaining about how they run their establishment, or I don't think they are, but it's what happens when they leave.
Understood. I would just say again, I think it's not that we would be the first or potentially causing other people to get it. I think it's a weighing of looking at the credibility and the track record of specific operators. And it would be our position that, you know, we fulfill the categories of being a good neighbor, good operator, and that's why we're looking for this opportunity.
Are there any further questions, comments? Mary Ann, I'm going to open your mic. You should be open. You got to click.
I'd
There
like
you
to
go.
know what happened at the abutters meeting.
I don't know if John Romano is with us.
I'm gonna
I
yeah,
myself
we're gonna
was
open his
in the
mic.
abutters meeting.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, hello everyone. So at the abutters meeting, I think that we only had a couple people show up, so they presented the project at the abutters meeting. There was some concerns about noise that were brought up as well. I'm sure that there were similar concerns that was brought up in the ZLC and that were brought up here, but they were answered by Ryan's counterpart, Will Ferrulo, as well. And people seem to have left the meeting satisfied with the answers that were given by Will, by Bill at that time.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm just looking to see.
Yes, I have one. Ryan, do you have a date at the licensing board yet?
We do not, no. So we actually have not filed the application yet. We're waiting to finish all of our meetings. I know we'll be meeting with Nunick, I believe, on next Monday. So I would anticipate we would file the application next week. So likely hearing date the first week of May, if I had to guess.
Okay, can you send me an email when you have a date, please?
Absolutely, yep.
Thanks.
Is there a motion? I've got to open some mics. Put your hand up. Somebody want to make a motion to support, not support? We're gonna write a letter.
Well, I guess it's probably up to me to make a motion.
I'm trying to open, Dave, I opened yours too. David Robertson, I just opened your motion. Oh, David Robertson has a question.
Well, I would like to make a motion to support Monica's.
I'm sorry, say it again. You'd like to make a motion, what?
To support Monica's, to stay open late.
Okay,
Well,
Not doing well. I'm sorry, this is first Zoom meeting, first city meeting.
Oh, that's okay. You're breaking up a little bit. Mary, I'm opening your mic again. You should just leave it open. Hold on, Mary, where are you? You just disappeared.
I can make a motion if you'd like me to.
Yeah, could you, for some reason, Mary, I see you, Mary, but you disappeared on the list. Go ahead, Sue.
So I believe this is our first vote, so it's our first vote, and I'd like to make a motion to either support or oppose the request.
Gotcha.
And
That's
I'll
how you-
I'll second. And can I just clarify that a person has to actually be a member to make a motion? So,
Sure. No, I didn't know that. Okay, thank you.
Well, you should join. I'm gonna put in the chat, just use my email address. It's just easier than the new Nick one. Less, email me your votes.
That is to Cheryl.
Yep, do it to cdelgreco@Comcast. I mean, we have a NEWRA address too, but it just seems it's a little bit longer. And it's newra.board@gmail.com. Okay. Okay, so just send over your votes. That would be terrific. And we'll get a note out to everybody with something tomorrow at some point after everybody sends in their votes. Nick Black is still here, and I know somebody had a question, so who was it? It was Sherry. Hold on, I'm looking for you here. I'm going to open your mic, and I'm going to open Nick's. All right.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. This is Sherry Moore. Nick, are you?
Nick is
Hi,
unmuted.
Sherry. I'm
Hi,
just over here answering emails.
great. Happy to email you my comments if you're not ready for them. So my name is Sherry Moore, and I live at Lewis Wharf. And just in summary, so I'm an architect, and I really love to assist with the new resiliency, because also I'm newly employed by Climate Ready Boston as a senior fellow in climate resilience. So the thing I noticed about the survey is that there's a little bit of a presumption that resilience, in order to have resilience, you need public open space. And as we all know, on the North End waterfront, there's just not enough real estate to have a lot of open space resiliency, coastal flooding resiliency solutions. They need to be continuous if they're going to be effective, as has been pointed out in these meetings several times. And there's going to have to be some very expensive engineered compact solutions along the historic waterfront. So then it kind of makes me wonder, if we give this entire Sergeant's Wharf parking lot over to an open space, we are creating another park. Whereas if you look at the North End, there are probably more parks in the North End, visually anyway, than there are in most other places in Boston. Do we need another park? It would be fantastic to have another park. But I also am really concerned that especially with all the development that we've seen going on in the North End without parking, because they probably want to encourage people not driving into the North End for their evening activities. This is really becoming a hardship on the residents and many residents do have contract parking at Sergeant's Wharf. So I guess I would just say that the survey seems to offer a binary choice between this needs to be open space or it stays parking, but I think we need to look at a combined solution where we maintain some parking, and perhaps we have some open space, but in order for there, again, to be a continuous barrier solution around the historic waterfront, which, by the way, also protects the financial district, because it is lower elevation wise than the wharf, the waterfront, then perhaps, the survey could be worded so that there are multiple more complex solutions than just it's either open space or it's parking.
Well, thanks for that, Sherry. It's a very valid point, and I will certainly cop to the fact that we were trying to not make it too long of a survey and kind of get to the point. You certainly sound like you're far more of an expert on the resiliency elements than I would ever claim to be, but we'll certainly acknowledge that it's not one or the other with the open space, because you're absolutely right. There has to be a district-wide resilient solution. My reference was more to the fact that the Climate Ready Boston North End survey did indicate that open space may be an appropriate use for the space at Sergeant's Wharf. We do ask in the survey whether or not people do park at Sergeant's Wharf, because that is a question I've been sort of trying to get at, because I hear it both ways quite a bit, that, oh, those are all commuters, oh, those are all residents. And so that is one of the questions. And so hopefully we'll be able to get a good sense of that. And I definitely put a question at the end there to share your additional thoughts, with the idea that people would have alternate suggestions and solutions. And I think that's certainly what you've made here, Sherry, and which I appreciate, because I don't presume to have one right answer, and wouldn't presume to tell all of you what the right answer is. And so that's what we're really trying to do, is start to get at what the impressions are, concerns, because we are going to have to work out a solution together for sure, because yeah, there's going to be competing interests the whole way across. So
Thank you. It's a good start. And you've got the survey, you've got well over 100, you had 170 responses. I'm sure there'll be another one.
Good.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the Cross Street Hotel. Dave Kubiak has a letter that he is a draft letter that you should have seen. It was been up on the website. Dave, I am opening your mic. Now I know Dan Toscano is here, who is representing the developer. I don't see Bill Calder on here yet. Sean, I think you're here on behalf of him too. So I can open your mic, you can answer questions if they come up. Oh, hold on, I did the wrong person. Okay. So Sean and Dan, your mics are open. Dave, your mic is open. Let Dave talk about his, about the letter that NEWRA is going to submit, take comments from questions and comments from abutters, then we'll open it up to other members and get through this. Thank you. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, before I get into the letter, I want to provide some background. Some of you may not even know about this project. This location is the former Pache Market and Maria's Bakery and the La Fauci fruit and vegetable stand of many years ago, which I think is now a real estate office, maybe. It's that block plus the parking lot next to the surface parking lot next to Pache. All of that would be removed and replaced with a 55-foot high, 134-room hotel, a very monolithic structure stretching across the entire site and up to 55 feet. Now that's the building height. And above that, there would be mechanicals and elevator shafts, and also towards the front of the building facing the city, there'd be bars and dining terraces on the roof. So that's a description of the project. What is the status of the project? Well, we need to be aware of at least a couple of things that happen for this project to be approved and allowed to be built. Two key processes. The first is Article 80 review by the Boston Planning and Development Agency. Because this is a large project, more than 50,000 square feet of floor area, it undergoes what's called large project review. And that means that there has to be a public process to review the potential impacts of the project, to try to mitigate those impacts, to mitigate those impacts, and ultimately that public process leads to a vote by the BPDA Board of Directors. They have to approve the project or it doesn't move forward. After that approval, if it gets approval, then the other key process is zoning relief, because the project as currently designed does violate the zoning code for floor area ratio. It's approximately the floor area ratio, which is the entire floor area divided by the size of the lot, is about twice as much as the zoning allows. And the other consideration for the zoning board is the increase in height. The project does not need a variance to go higher, but it does need ZBA approval, because on a certain date in 1985, I think the year is 1985, whatever the height of the building was at that time governs by right what you can go to. If you want to go any higher than that, you have to get approval from the ZBA. And the ZBA, by the code, has to consider loss of views, loss of light, shadow impacts, and those kinds of things. Now, we need to focus only on the Article 80 review at this time. We do not have to think about the ZBA zoning relief process until the board of directors of the BPDA approves this project, if they approve it. Now, what we're responding to in this comment letter is the first filing by the developer of a report that describes the project, describes some of the impacts of that project, gives a lot of information about the project. That's called a project notification form. Public comments will be received by the BPDA until April 19, 5 o'clock on April 19. And Cheryl, if we haven't done so already, after this meeting, we should send out some information on how to submit comments to the BPDA. And there's a number of ways you can do that. You can do that by going to the BPDA website. You can send an email, or you can send a letter. With all of the public comments and the input during, for instance, the public meeting last night, and the IAG, the Impact Advisory Group that's been set up to look at impacts and mitigation. With all of that input, the BPDA then puts together a scope for the next report. And that next report, hopefully, will be a draft project impact report. I say hopefully because most large projects have to submit a draft report that's subject to public review again, then file a final report. Sometimes the draft report is accepted as a final report, and I hope that won't be the case here. So this is really the first major public review of this project, but there will be subsequent public reviews of later project filings. Okay, so this letter is 3.5 pages long right now, and I know at other meetings, folks didn't want me to read the letter. So
No. Because they all call me.
What I did instead, so this is directed to the director of the Boston Planning and Development Agency. What I did instead was highlight some paragraphs. It wasn't easy not highlighting some of the information. Every sentence here, I think, is important. So let me read the highlighted statements. Our comments, that's NEWRA's comments, reflect concerns that have recently been raised in the North End waterfront neighborhood regarding the hotel project's lack of residential community purpose and benefit, community and resident impacts, parkland impacts, and private use of public space, as well as an inadequate public process to date. The project site is surrounded primarily by residential buildings on Salem, Endicott, and Stillman Streets, where hundreds of North End residents live, and by parkland and public open space, including the Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy Greenway, the Cross Street Pedestrian Plaza, and Vincent Cutillo Park, a neighborhood park immediately behind and bounded by the project site. The project site has a hundreds-year history of being part of and serving the North End residential community. And the above paragraph gets into some of that history. Now comes a development plan from Cross Street Ventures LLC, which proposes to construct a 134-room hotel with 2 ground floor restaurants and seasonal rooftop bar and dining terraces, having total seating capacity of approximately 300. The hotel is proposed to be a monolithic 5-story building rising to 55 feet over the entire project site, approximately 45 feet higher than the current structures. Now that's just the building up to the roof line. That again does not include the rooftop structures or the terrace. The proposed hotel, this is probably the statement where we come closest to saying we oppose the project without saying at this stage that we oppose the project. The proposed project is incongruous with our historic residential neighborhood. It provides only the benefit of a new building and new activity on the site, and with a specific proposal that may have greatest impact compared to other development possibilities. This theme about other development possibilities comes up again in this letter. It effectively removes the site from the North End for the purpose of accommodating more city visitors. The proposed hotel may help meet the city's demand for hotel rooms, but it does not help satisfy the city's need for residential housing or the North End's need for neighborhood support services. The hotel project will create a barrier, a high wall, between the Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy Greenway and the North End. The hotel structure is proposed to completely fill the legal limits of the site, stretching to the property lines and as high as the 55-foot height limit in the North End, not including those rooftop structures. Rooftop structures could increase the total height another 15 feet. By the way, anything you see in red are additions to the letter or subtractions to the letter since it was posted. Even greater massing, and this is something I learned last night, even greater massing is proposed with the design to extend the building's floors 2 through 5 beyond the property line and over a portion of Cross Street Plaza. Careful analysis and assessment must be conducted and vetted with the public and the Boston Parks and Recreation Department to understand the proposed hotel's potential to compromise light, sun, and view of sky in Vincent Cutillo Park and impact both the green elements of the park and public enjoyment. Equally concerning are the impacts to enjoyment of this neighborhood park by the operations of a 134-room hotel and 2 large restaurants. How will the park be affected by open hotel windows, by the large glass doors of the proposed restaurant that will open up to the park, by outdoor restaurant seating that may be added to the proposed park passageway, and by mechanical and ventilation equipment? The hotel massing and the hotel and restaurant activity will impose burdens on the adjacent residential community. The barrier wall created by the hotel height and massing will impact dozens of abutting residences, blocking light and views, impacting their privacy, and harming the owner's property values. And then regarding the restaurants, the North End is already saturated with restaurants and alcohol licenses. We request that the future of the public open space that is Cross Street Plaza be given just as much public review and planning as the development of the project site. The current configuration and public programming were the outcome of a city-administered public process a decade ago. There should be no less public participation in city decisions that may turn over much of the use and control of the plaza to the accommodations of the proposed hotel and restaurants and potentially compromise pedestrian access and safety. We request that the BPDA, regarding public process, we request that the BPDA commit to a proactive, rigorous, and transparent public process, not limited to meetings, that strives to ensure that all members of the North End community are informed about the project and are aware of available public information, public review and comment opportunities, and the scheduling of IAG and public meetings. We ask that the BPDA hold targeted North End community meetings. In all public and community meetings, priority should be given to recognizing abutters, followed by other North End residents, and offering them ample opportunity for comment. And we were talking about this at the beginning of this meeting. We believe it's a poor, possibly false excuse that the technology being used by the BPDA and necessarily providing language translation does not allow participants to be viewed and named on the screen at the participant's discretion. Please update or change the platform being used to be able to hold virtual meetings in a form as similar as possible to the on-site meetings held before the pandemic. And then a question about past planning efforts. Now, this site is within the Central Artery Corridor, and there was a lot of planning for the Central Artery Corridor a couple decades ago. It's also within what's called the Greenway District, and there was planning maybe as much as a decade ago by the BPDA all along the Greenway. And those planning efforts produced goals and requirements. Did those past planning efforts address the questions and concerns raised in this comment letter, especially in this case, the impacts to the community, abutting residences, and Vincent Cutillo Park? If not, then a more responsive planning process should be conducted by the BPDA now before any further decisions about the hotel proposal are made. And then in conclusion, given these concerns and potential serious impacts of development on the Cross Street site, of utmost importance is the evaluation of development alternatives that include variations of height, massing, and use, and comparison of the impacts and benefits of the alternatives with the proposed hotel development. Now, that's something that's always required by the state if state environmental review were required. But in this case, it is not required. This is going to be reviewed only at the city level. And I don't know whether the Boston Planning and Development Agency or Article 80 requires that alternatives be looked at. But we're urging the BPDA to require a look at changes to the project and how that affects, how that changes the impacts, maybe mitigates the impacts, including use. Are there uses on the site that won't impact the neighborhood, possibly won't impact the neighborhood as much as a hotel and two large restaurants? So that's the letter. Cheryl, you can open it up to comments.
Does anyone have a question? Mary, your hand's up, your mic is open. You're the first one up.
Yeah, Cheryl, it actually is off topic. I tried to catch before we started. I just have a couple of people that I don't know whether they're members or not. So I'm just going to read two names. And if they are members, if they could just answer on the chat who they are, just so we're straight for our voting and our attendance.
Sure.
I've got Kathy's iPad. I don't know who that is. And then
I know it's Kathy Roshla.
Oh, okay, great. I've got her then. And I've also got Todd Barber, who I don't seem to have on my membership list. So
He's Commercial Wharf.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Sure, no worries. Okay, questions. Who has questions? Jen, I see your hand is up. Your mic is open.
Hello. Dave, I just wanted to say, I think the letter is great. The executive committee obviously got to review it before it was posted, but I think that, as always, you did a great job with drafting. Thank you. And I think it's important to express opinions early in the process like this, and constructive opinions that aren't necessarily going one way or the other, but calling out the impacts on the neighborhood. I think there's a few different projects kind of on the bubble in the neighborhood right now. One of them is next to our property here at 63 Atlantic Avenue. The other one is the Joe's site on the waterfront. And then this hotel is the third one. So kind of like 3 points in important spots in the neighborhood where there are opportunities that, could include housing, and especially affordable housing for the neighborhood, and other uses that benefit the neighborhood and the residents, rather than just private developers who are going to, make a bunch of money and then, have a bunch of tourists come in, which, we need tourists, but we have a lot already. And I think residential use is super important. So thanks again for drafting this. And I think everybody who cares about this and other potentially inappropriate development stuff going on gets on it and sends letters in so that they can see that our neighborhood is engaged and we care about what's happening here.
Thank you, Jen. Sherry, I opened your mic.
Thank you. And that, yes, Dave, that was a very, very thorough and great letter. I was there at the meeting last night also and stuck it out. And for those of you who weren't there, I would say, I'm putting my architect's hat on now, the biggest cause of alarm is something that we have talked about in this meeting before, which is the makeup of the ZBA. So to connect the dots, the most alarming thing I heard was that the developer stated that they intend to ask for and anticipate getting zoning relief to build 5.36 FAR on a 3.0 FAR by right site. So just a kind of a review, this is a math problem. So if FAR is the floor area ratio, it's the ratio of the total building area, in this case about 80,000 square feet, to the area of the site, which is about 13,000. So roughly, if you were to build a 5-story building, which they're doing in the 55-foot height, that means that you get a 5.0 FAR. And the reason, and that would be a box. That would be a smooth box, no articulation of the windows, no modeling of the building, no ornamentation. And the reason they're getting 5.36 is that they're, as Dave pointed out, they're wanting to cantilever over the plaza in front of the building. So I think that if the zoning department, the zoning board, would actually even entertain approving a 100% density on any site, it would be antithetical to responsible governance, in my view, and sustainable development of livable cities in the historic, especially in the historic North End. So I think I'd like to connect the dots here with zoning, with the problem with zoning, the makeup of the board, the way they're viewing these projects. If they would actually approve a 100% density on any site. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Ryan, I am opening your mic. You are in a butter. Should open.
Great. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Yep.
I'd just like to echo previous comments, David, Cheryl, and others that worked on this letter. Obviously, incredibly well done, and echoes a petition now of North End residents that that numbers in the hundreds, not 100. There are hundreds of people that have signed the petition already and will be submitted to the BPDA portal. I'd also like to touch on, I believe, the previous comment regarding the zoning potential ZBA relief that would be required for this. I could assure you there are an enormous amount of individuals at this point that would sue the city if that ever happened till we die, truthfully. It would never happen. And it is this plan absolutely flies in the face of Article 54, almost in every sentence of Article 54. So again, there is an enormous amount of individuals that have already banded together that will sue the city again until the end of time if they absolutely approve that zoning variance. Thank you.
Okay, I have another hand up. Eileen and Richard Jacobs. Your mic is open.
Hi, I also agree that this is an excellent letter and would like to point out that the ZBA has been ignoring section 54, particularly section 18 in 54, approving building heights of buildings that were there in 1985. The North End has a very robust zoning requirement that is ignored all the time. And this is another example of a proposal where the restrictions imposed in the North End are being would be completely ignored, both in terms of height of the building exceeding those that were there in 85, as well as the floor ratio. So I fully support sending this letter.
Does anyone else have a question? The petition is up in the chat. Thanks, Mary Beth, for putting it up.
Gerald, I wanted to add one more thing. The importance of the current process before the BPDA. First, in the 25 years that I've been involved in these kinds of things, the North End, and probably even other areas, has never seen a project approved by the BPDA board that does not get the variance relief it needs. So I consider ZBA approval of the project as rubber stamping after the board at the BPDA approves it. Also, I've never seen the BPDA deny a project, at least not in or around our neighborhood. Never seen it. So the only way these projects change significantly is by really good politics. And that's before the BPDA process and before the zoning process. And we did that as a community. We stuck together as a community in 1997 and greatly changed the Battery Wharf project, which now opens up to the harbor. It didn't originally, and it was 85 feet high. We made sure it did not go above 55 feet high. We also stuck together as a community and fought against expanding 585 Commercial Street into multi-million-dollar condos, which would have created another barrier between the North End and the harbor. And that became a public school. That's the Elliott School down by the skating rink. So the only times that I have seen these projects change significantly is when they didn't make it through the Article 80 process. If they get through the Article 80 process, there's a good chance, almost 100% chance, that the BRA board will approve the project and the ZBA will provide the necessary zoning relief. So we have to work hard now if we want changes to this project.
Does anyone else have a question? Any of the abutters? I know there's a lot of abutters on this call tonight. If put your hand up if you can't get the Audrey, I see you have a question. I'm opening your mic. Go ahead.
So this is just an amazing insult to neighbors. I think, you know, we all live here in the North End. So our building at 26 Stillman, all the condos that face this proposal only have windows on one side. And those windows will lose sunlight, all sunlight. It will become a brick wall where there will be hotel guests staring at us, and we will lose our sunlight. And that provides light and heat. And the park, if you stand in Cutillo Park and just imagine 4 walls of 55 feet, it's already 3. And now it will be 4. And the park is, the park's a problem now. It's been improved by the Friends of Cutillo Park, but it's a problem, and it's going to become worse of a problem. It's going to become dark, and Morton Street, I park off Morton Street. I won't be able to park. There will be hotel vehicles. It'll be smaller than it is right now. It's 1 lane and it's a city street. I think that the Pache's parking lot is zoned in 1985 for 2 stories. That's what the parking lot is zoned for. The developer could build right now without a big building permit on the area over the Pache's building and Maria's. He could build right now. He could put an amazing structure that would be inviting to the north end and shed light on Cutillo Park and maybe be terraced. And he could put 2 stories up on the parking lot. But we haven't seen any. I mean, I could sit and doodle with my pen and think, oh, look at this would look better. Instead, it's just pure greed, right? I mean, what is it that stops somebody from developing something that looks nice, that's not huge? It's money. And we can't say that our neighbors are just an acceptable collateral damage. Our property value is going to go down. Our lives are going to be dark, and we're going to have tears right in front of our house. Are we all going to allow that to happen? I mean, that's sad to me. And somebody who is building this, the developer said he's a neighbor. Well, that's not what neighbors do to other neighbors. It's just not.
Anybody have any more questions? I don't see any hands up. I don't see anything in chat. Bill, oh, wait a minute, I see a question. Okay, people are just, Sue, do you want me to open your mic, Sue? I'm opening your mic. You had a question in the chat about the mayor's involvement.
I just wonder if the mayor has any influence at this point in the project. Dave,
Complete influence over every project in the city.
okay. So maybe the mayor should be addressed sooner than later about this project.
The mayor is CC'd on the letter anyway as a
Okay.
first step.
Oh, I see another hand up. Let's see, Mary. I'm trying to open your mic. There you go.
Actually, Tom Schiavone, thank you.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, my question is, have we really seen enough of a study on transportation? Last night was the first time that I heard, and correct me someone else if you were there and I'm somehow misunderstood this, but at the height of, or on the average, there's going to be 1 car a minute that's going to be taking a right onto Salem and then a quick left, either to drop off incoming or picking up outgoing hotel guests. There's a 300-seat restaurant. I imagine there are going to be functions there. And just for the pedestrian value of people who live in the neighborhood on their way, let's say, for example, walking down Salem Street, passing Go Bananas, on your way to the public market or to the Haymarket. And I was wondering what kind of even dangerousness, right now we know that it's passive, and I'm not saying that it should just be a makeshift parking lot. But just imagine if there was a wedding party or times of the day we know when either conventioneers or visitors are going to the airport or leaving or coming in, and the pedestrians now, and in the context of this, what's happening on Hanover Street, at least for the foreseeable future, and we're trying to get the restaurants back on their feet, they're now going to, Hanover Street now is only 2 lanes. And so people taking cabs and Ubers, I can foresee that the top of Salem Street can be an endangering situation and can inadvertently, even people getting off there for the hotel instead of pulling up front, especially if there's taxi cabs and other things backed up, somebody will say, I'll just get off right here. So we may be inadvertently channeling more traffic down Salem Street, which is very heavily traveled with pedestrians now. And of course, Salem Street itself has lost additional space. So my question is, has this study really reflected the impact in terms of the context of the rest of the neighborhood? Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Can I jump
yep.
in for a minute
Yep.
also? I just would like to quickly follow up on the comments about the zoning board. And just to say from personal experience and also from many years of observing this process that I totally agree the composition of the zoning board in the city is a problem, but an even bigger problem is, as has been mentioned, their failure to actually apply what the zoning law is in the city of Boston. However, one reason they get away with this is that people more often than not do not appeal their decisions, and it's a matter of simple economics. But if people are prepared to appeal and people are prepared to go to Superior Court, it's a whole new ballgame. And more often than not, the decisions of the zoning board cannot withstand the scrutiny of the Superior Court, who actually is prepared to apply what the law really is. So I just think it's important for people to keep that in mind and not be too discouraged about the zoning board that we have here.
Thank you, Mary. Steve, your mic is open, and Cornelius, I'm going to open your mic. You can go after Steve.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. I just wanted to make more comments than ask any questions. First of all, I think the letter was very well written. Second of all, I think Audrey made some excellent points about who is going to benefit from this project. The only increase I see from this project moving forward is in the developers' pockets, the rats, the trash, and the noise. It's going to close off what the North End neighborhood is to the Greenway, not connect it. And I have to agree with Ryan, there's a lot of people here that are going to sue the city until they're dead to keep this project from happening. Look, I don't think any of us are against something really nice going into this space, but to exceed what you should be doing, going up too high and causing more traffic and insulting our intelligence by calling it a boutique hotel with 130 floor rooms, which is a lot more than a boutique hotel would ever be, is kind of ridiculous. And hopefully everybody will see that it's just crucial that this massive building does not go up there. It's going to crush traffic too. Unbelievable, because everybody's going on 93 and they're going to have valets, and it's going to take all of our parking spaces away. And I just don't see anything good from this specific project. Thanks so much for letting me talk.
Thank you. Cornelius, your mic is open.
Thanks, Cheryl. Cheryl, your letter was spot on. I'm a direct abutter. None of the neighbors who live anywhere close to this project approve any aspect of it. It is just way too big in size, massing, and height. It's going to create way more traffic. I don't know where that traffic study came from. Way more traffic into our neighborhood. It takes away public parking, and it impacts, emergency vehicles go through that intersection across in North Washington there. The police A1 police station and the fire station that services all of Charlestown. This is a huge problem. And he has paid off people. He's paid off many more consultants that worked for him than were paid off for Suffolk Downs. And this is just a ridiculous thing that the neighborhood does not want. And we will be suing every step of the way, which is sad, and it will take years, but we are not going to put up with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Actually, I'd like to see if Bill Calder or Dan Toscano, would you guys like to speak? I can open your mics. I don't know if you have any comments. If other folks have questions, I don't see any more hands up and I don't see any more chat questions. Dan, I'm just looking for you to see if you want, I'll open your mic. You can just tell me whether or not you and Bill would like to speak as soon as I find you. Hold on a second. Okay, Dan, I opened your mic.
Thank you, Cheryl.
And
Thank
Bill,
you.
I'm going to open your mic too if you would like to speak.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for the association. And I thank Dave, known Dave for many, many years, and I thank him for his dedication and commitment and thorough work over the many, many years, looking out for the quality of life in the neighborhood. Very well written letter. Look forward to digesting the letter, talking it over with our team. This is what the process is all about. We've heard many, many comments over the last couple of months, and our team is continually to work together to address these concerns. So the community process it's not over. We have plenty of time to go, and we really look forward to continue our outreach with the community. So I don't have anything else to say in terms of addressing all these issues. At some point we will, but I'll defer to Bill if he had anything to say, but just thanks for having me, and thanks for all the comments that we
Is there a next step? Is there a step to work with the community? I mean, are you going to put together a group, or how can we all work together here?
So I reached, just did, I'll take that. So I reached out to the 26 Dillon Place folks early on through the property management company, and was invited to come and walk through the property and have a discussion. And it quickly turned to, no communication and really just quick opposition. And, I obviously live here in the neighborhood. I'm a developer, but I'm also a resident. And I have a number of concerns, like everybody else on this call, about Cotillo Park, especially being drug infested. It's a dog toilet. There's homelessness, homeless encampments. I walked by there. I own the building where Maria's used to be, and the real estate agency. I walked out back to make sure that there was no trash accumulating out back, and there was a sign, "Rest in Peace," with a name on it and flowers attached to the fence, which is obviously an OD. And so I'm committed to cleaning up what I see as blight and what I see as a big problem in this neighborhood. And I understand that NEWRA, is focused on making sure that all the impacts are addressed. But I'm sticking to the 55-foot height limitation. I'm exceeding the FAR as everyone pointed out. But still, a 5-foot building with an FAR of 3 would be essentially compliant. And the one thing I wanted to ask, just keeping my sort of resident hat on for a second, is I heard something about that it's not a benefit to the neighborhood. So what uses would folks like to see? Because I do multifamily as well, right? So The reason why I didn't do multifamily condos specifically is because it would be relegated to a handful of people, right? And it would be their use only, their roof deck only. And I wanted to make this more of a public realm versus just something, a site that is owned and controlled by a sifted few that can afford it. So the hotel use I thought was the higher and better use. Office is an option, but we all know what the pandemic has done to office. So use is a question for me. I think the hotel is a higher and better use. The inclusion of the passageway I thought was essential. I think I read in David's letter here that the site is the gateway to the neighborhood. It's actually an obstacle to the neighborhood right now, and it also closes off Cotillo Park to where you have that nefarious activity back there. So including this passageway with a restaurant on one side and having light and air pass through the building, I felt added eyes to the park, right? Will add eyes to the park and will also help in security. So it's the nefarious activity happens back there because there's nobody watching. And even if I put security cameras on the back of my building, no, they're still going to do what they want to do. So I'm trying to activate that edge of Cotillo Park through this process and through this use. And, you know, it sounds like what I was reading through the letter that restaurants are not a good thing, although restaurants, you know, in the neighborhood are really what makes our neighborhood vibrant and lively and safe because, you know, it's an active use. And so that's why, you know, I've been focusing on restaurant on the first floor. You spoke about the massing. Obviously, you know, the zoning speaks to a continual street wall with no true articulation of the street wall. Similar to if you walk up and down any of the streets here, Hull Street, Fulton Street, Commercial Street, Hanover Street, Salem Street, you name it, they're all continual street walls. And so we have to go in front of BCDC, which we will obviously, they'll have a lot of input on what this hotel looks like. But I just wanted to, you know, tell everybody that, and I know Mr. O'Connor mentioned something about paying off consultants. I have to engage all my consultants, architects, engineers, traffic consultants, permitting consultants. I don't know what he was referring to about paying anybody off, but that was a little bit off the mark. But regardless, I'm here. I'm on this call. I'm accessible. If the 26 Tillman Place folks would like to meet, I would love to do that. If anybody else would like to meet with me, I'd love to meet with them. You know, I've met with essentially every businessman and restaurateur in the North End who's incredibly supportive of this project. We have over 350 support letters, likely more, that have already gone into the city. A lot of the people, you know, that I interact with have kids and have families, and it's hard at this time of night to get on a lot of these Zoom meetings because they're probably on Zoom meetings all day long with their work. So I can tell you that a lot of people in this neighborhood are very supportive of this project. And so my door's open. I'm ready and willing to work with anybody who wants to listen. And I will have as many listening sessions as I can as well.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of questions and comments. I'm just going to read them off the chat, and then Audrey, I'll open your mic. Where do we go? Someone froze to death on the Greenway. I guess we were talking about somebody in the park, in Cotillo Park, but someone said no, they froze to death on the Greenway. And then Steve, the only thing you're committed to is making money. The structure is too big, 2 to 3 stories. Jim Crampton, housing, include affordable housing, get subsidies, tax credits to finance. Have you looked at that? Housing with retail, restaurant at ground level, you could still have a terrace use. Why not?
People are asking or making comments about making money and profiting, whether it's housing or whether it's a hotel. it has to be profitable. I mean, there's going to be, you know, it has to work to get it financed, to get debt, to get equity. It's kind of a normal process for development.
Then another question, why not 30 to 40,000 square feet as of right?
Like I said, I mean, 55 feet is the height limitation. You know, the FAR is whether it's an FAR of 3 or an FAR of 5, the height is the height. So
I think that the question is why not smaller?
Because
I kind of don't like to read people's questions. It's,
Right.
I'm not really sure what they're asking.
so the site is, so I'm building to the limit. It's almost construed in the letter that I'm violating the height limitation, which I'm going to 55 feet.
Right, but they're asking why not 30 to 40 square feet? 30 to 40,000, I guess, so that it's not as big.
Any developer who's going to build here is going to build the building to the extent where it's financeable, it's financially feasible, you know.
Okay. Someone asked, are there currently any chain restaurants in the North End? Are they even allowed, or is this a special exception too?
I'm giving preference to any restaurateur in the North End first, to the restaurant space. You know, there was a suggestion by Mr. Bronya last night that we look to incorporate shops or, you know, gelato, even a cafe, so that the retail is not, you know, hard and fast restaurant. That's, you know, what we envision as activating the Morton Street side and activating the Cotillo Park space with eyes on the park. But if it was partially a cafe, partially a restaurant, you know, with seating in the park, we don't know what the Parks Department is going to design, but we hope it's a bit more passive because the basketball court, for instance, takes up about almost 2/3 of the park, and it gets little use. So we hope that something positive happens with the design there, where it could really interrelate between the two. We're not looking to take over the park. But if somebody from Paulie's, for instance, wants to go and have lunch there, they should be able to sit at a table and eat lunch, or somebody goes to Modern and brings a box back and has, you know, a coffee and cannolis back there. I think they want to be able to go back there and feel safe doing it.
Well, this is a comment from someone from Carolina. People are still going to do drugs, and nefarious activity will still take place with the hotel. Currently, the addicts get kicked out of Cotillo and they just go across the street to the Greenway and drink and do drugs. Now, that's a law enforcement thing. Then we have, do you plan to sign with a union builder?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, another question from Kirsten. Can the developer address section 54-18 of the zoning code?
Dan is my zoning whiz, but 5418, there's a section, there's obviously the first floor, there would be a conditional use approval, I believe, for exceeding the first floor. The parking lot, there was a building on a portion of the parking lot, but the parking lot, I'm not sure if Audrey is accurate about the 2-story application on the parking lot. I think it's 55 feet. And Audrey, I know I see Audrey shaking your head. If you want to reach out to me and let me know about the detail on that, I will take a look at it. But 5418 also talks about roof structures exceeding 10% of the building footprint. You know, we're looking at all of the MEPs that we have on the roof terrace or on the roof deck right now, and we're looking at different mechanical systems, where right now we have it all centralized, where you've got these bigger pieces of equipment on the roof. But if we decentralize the HVAC equipment, meaning we put HVAC equipment in each room and limit the amount of mechanicals on the roof itself, we're going to do what we can to comply with 5418 as far as going beyond the 55-foot height limitation.
Thanks, Bill. I was on mute, so I apologize. I think you addressed it. So 5418, we're at the very least, we're looking at a roof structure violation, which is a conditional use. So, and then we're continuing to work with our civil engineer and the team for the mechanicals up there. Okay. That in terms of 5418, that's the violation, the roof structure. Okay. And we're looking at the mechanicals, as Bill had mentioned about the 10%, exceeding the 10%. Okay.
5418 is specific for the north end. And that says that you may not obstruct light, air, and views from the abutters. And that is totally what this building is doing. And I want to just say, Bill, we asked you to come over and then COVID hit. And that was the problem. And our building management said, oh, we can't have him come over because of COVID. And that was March, because we talked to you in early March. And yes, I would love you to come over, because I would love you to stand in the middle of Cutillo Park and see 55 feet all around you in 4 directions. And that one little pass-through is not going to produce a lot of light. And I know that you're saying you can't get financing for anything under 55 feet. Well, I'm sure people build things under 55 feet. It just doesn't make as much money. I can't be sympathetic to that when you're hurting the neighbors. That is just, it's just not right. We would love to see, Pache's was great. Put some retail space in there that we can use. We're not gonna stay at the hotel. We're not gonna stay there. We're probably not gonna eat there. We're only gonna be annoyed at the roof deck that's keeping us up at night. That's not our benefit. It just doesn't benefit the community. I feel sad that you don't see that. It may benefit the business community. It may benefit you, but it doesn't benefit your neighbors. Of course, we're not really your neighbors. We're kind of across the way on the north end, and you're not right here, but it's not fair. It just makes me so sad, because this is a very tight-knit community and people are nice here. I've lived here since 1990. This is just not right. Come over, come see. Come see, these condos only have windows on that side. You're gonna block off all the light, all of it. I'm not gonna be able to get in my parking space because you're gonna have hotel things going on. A hotel doesn't do anything for us. It doesn't do anything for the North End community. We already live here. We don't need to rent a hotel room. We live here. Give us a store, give us, Martin Yeti's was even better. Give us Martin Yeti's back. Give us Pache's back. Give us a store. Give us something we can go to. This is not something we can go to. We have plenty of restaurants. It's just sad for me. I can't believe this is happening, because I was so looking forward to a development in that space. And this is, now I'm going to have people looking at me, or I'm going to hear noise all night long. I mean, I do hear noise. I was looking forward to a development blocking the sirens, actually, but this is just not benefiting me at all. I can't say, oh, geez, a hotel, great. I'm going to go book a room. Well, maybe you're taking away all my views, so maybe I'll go book a room now, but that's sad. If someone wanted to build right in front of you and block your view of the water, what would you think? That's what you have to think. I'm a neighbor here. I live here. I pay taxes just like you do. It's sad to me. It's just sad. Come over. Come over and see us. Sure. If you're vaccinated, I welcome you.
I am.
Okay, then we will look forward to you going over and seeing these folks, and with Dan and whomever else. Does anyone else have a question? Does anyone else have anything they want to say? Dave, can you take the letter down off the screen?
Yeah.
Does anyone, nothing? I'm looking to see if anybody puts their hand up. Victor, do you want to talk about the ZLC meeting for April? I will unmute you because I thought you wanted to do that. Victor, you are unmuted.
Unmuted now.
You good to go.
Okay. Today we got a request to engage the NEWRA process by Joe's Restaurant that wants to put outdoor speakers. And that's an application to the Mayor's Office of Consumer Affairs and Licensing. So that will be going through the process, the ZLC and a NEWRA vote.
Okay. Do we have a date yet for ZLC in April? We'll send
Well,
them.
it's usually the fourth Tuesday in the month.
It'll be April 27th.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get a note out to everybody.
But is there time for 14 days notice?
No, I don't know. Well, we'll figure that out because you know what? I forgot to call for a vote on the letter.
Mm-hmm.
So I need a motion. I don't know that we all need to vote.
Yeah, is
We
there
just gotta show
anyone
our
who
hands.
is opposed? Is there anyone who is opposed to not holding a vote and sending this letter as it's written? Anyone opposed to not taking a vote, but allowing this letter to go as written?
Put your hand up, Sherry. You want to speak? Go ahead. I open your mic, Sherry.
Thank you. I move that we approve the letter to be sent with whatever modifications the authors would like to add based on tonight's discussion.
Okay, does anyone, just put your
Well,
hand.
I second the motion, but by what means?
I'm trying to do this without everybody emailing me a vote. So a lot of people have cut their video off. If you,
David, are you saying you'd like to know by what means to determine what you may add?
No, by what means would we vote to support? Would it be by sending in individual email votes? Is that what you're suggesting? Or by, what's the word?
how about if we do it this way? If anyone is opposed to sending this letter, can you put your hand up? Can you put something in the chat?
And you have to be a NEWRA voting member.
I mean, the discussion does, as Jen Crampton just says in chat, the discussion indicates an overwhelming agreement to send this letter as written. I haven't heard anybody speak and say that the letter needs to be changed. I mean, we can do a vote. It's just, I mean, we've done this in the past. Dave, what do you think? Victor, you guys are the ZLC people.
Well, fine, let's just have the vote. So if you don't mind, Sherry, amending your motion by saying that we vote to support or oppose sending this letter to the BPDA as presently written by sending a vote, a ballot into Cheryl at newra.board@gmail.com.
I'll put my email up
So
again.
moved.
Either
So
one.
moved.
Fine.
Okay, so some people are voting in the chat. Yeah, okay. All right, I'm gonna leave the chat open for a minute because that wasn't really an option, but okay. Okay, anybody else gonna vote in chat? If you are, you can just direct message me in the chat or email me, cdelgreco@comcast.net. And we'll get,
And don't forget your vote on the earlier matter regarding the extension of hours at
Monica's.
Monica's.
Yeah, I've got those.
Not mine yet.
Nope, I've got quite a few. All right,
Okay, I'm starving.
we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you soon.